Today we are honored to welcome Kris Land to the show today. I'm very excited to have him on. He's written an amazing book called The Infinity Within. He really talks about conquering fear, mastering your mind, and really becoming aware of a reality in a sense. And he has amazing stories, helped so many different people, and I'm very excited to have him on to share his insights with us. And I know we're going to get a lot of value out of this to transform our lives. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Anthony. Thank you for having me on your show.
100%. So I'm very curious to hear your story and how you got into mastering fear and how you're serving people today.
Absolutely. The Infinity Within has kind of a lengthy story. I'll try to keep it fairly short. I started at a very young age working with electronics and then started programming at about the age 15 or 16 and was selling Apple II computers when I was in junior high. So the Apple II will certainly age me a bit. And one of the people that came in and bought his first Apple II from me, this was when the floppy drive first came out. This was like the first floppy drive available for personal computers. And he wanted to write accounting software for his farm. And so we did that together. We ended up getting what he needed done, and then we ended up selling it for a whole bunch of money, which was both good news and it put me into a severe depressional spiral. And the later on in life, I learned about how the story about how many people will win the lottery and completely destroy their lives. And I kind of really got that as I look back on what happened to me back then. So what happened is by having all this money and selling a company at 17 and a half, I thought I'd done everything I was supposed to do. And so I had no direction on where I wanted to go. And I ended up creating 3 goals, like as a stair step to get myself out of this hole. The 3 goals that I could do daily, but never, ever accomplish fully. And they were to have fun, learn, and do neither at the harm or impedance of others. And by putting those 3 together, it kind of allowed me to claw my way to the next thing. And what had happened is I got hired by an executive at a bank in San Diego, and his name was coincidentally Kris as well. And he was a tried and true atheist. And even though I have no problem with people believing whatever they want to believe, it didn't quite sit with me as far as because of who Kris was and kind of how I looked at how things worked. And so I ended up coming up with a set of questions of what are the pros and cons of believing we have a soul? And it turns out, in just a very short number of questions, all the benefit is in believing we have a soul, whether we have one or not. All the downside is believing we don't. And so it's like, okay, great. If we want to believe we have a soul, what is it? Fortunately, in my past, I'd spent a lot of time in theology and done a lot of reading of different types of books, including the Bible and well, the list goes on. But the Bible has some really cool chapter and verses that really kind of brought me into a process of thinking, which is, we are the children of God. And one of them that where Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he says, you will do everything I've done, meaning all the healing and all the different things he did, plus much more. Well, okay, what does that mean? Where does that come from? And then there's a number of other chapters and verses, and then the different theologies, whether it be Buddhism or you go back all the way back to the Egyptians and Sanskrit, there's all kinds of similar statements and comments made. So when I started asking what is a soul, the only answer I could come up with is something that is the child of God, that we're each a splinter of God, or in essence a God on our own, or the ability to do godlike things, except that we're told that we're not able to do those things. From children up, I mean, you hear stories about how children can see ghosts and they can see things that the adults can't see. Well, why does that happen? Well, the belief I have is that as children, we don't have shields yet. We're not taught all the reality shields. And so we don't know any better than to look and see these things. And if we see them, we see them. But then, of course, when we tell our parents, they say, well, you're making this up. It's not real. That's not possible. And all these different languages that tell us that we're small. We're not able to see these grandiose things. So when I started writing the book, The Infinity Within, a big part of the book is what I would call a non-fictional memoir, which is things that happened to me as a child growing up that are out of the norm. They're not what most people would consider sane. And you have to, even when I tell the stories, I tell people, you need to take a grain of salt with this because it may not fit what you believe. So I'll dive into that quickly to get to your question about fear. When I was 6 years old, I was getting ready to go to sleep, and the entire universe opened up, where walls and things all kind of faded into transparency, and I could see for endless space, and I could hear all the voices from everywhere. And I remember this toy train on the ground, and I went to pick it up and picked it up, and it was like it had the consistency of paper or even of smoke. And it freaked me out. I got incredibly scared, ran up to my parents, and it went away. At 8 years old, it happened again. And this time I played with it a little bit more. I listened to some of the voices. They were actual conversations, and was able to see different places and do stuff. And then, of course, got scared and went up to my folks and it went away. When I was 12 years old, it got really interesting. So I was able to handle the fear a little bit better and sit with it. And because I started working at a young age, I had enough money that I bought what was, in that day, pretty cool, a king-size waterbed. And that was when waterbeds were a thing, right? And if anybody knows how much a king-size waterbed weighs, they are massive, and they weigh a bunch. So I'm sitting next to the bed, and I get into this state, and I'm kind of playing around with it, and I took my finger, and I pushed on the waterbed, and the whole thing moves like 3 inches. Freaked the crap out of me, ran up to my folks, and it went away. The next morning, I go downstairs, and the bed has moved 3 inches on the carpet. So that really got me into this stuff for me, now for everybody else, you have to take it in your own way. But for me, it pointed out that these things I'm experiencing are real. They're not my imagination. This stuff is happening. And then there's some more things that happened, but one of my favorite stories, I have people ask me about past life experience, which is something that it's an interesting fence. Some people believe in them, some people don't. When I was 22, I was in San Diego, and a friend of mine's was invited to a wedding, and they were friends of the groom and bride. And I got to sit at the table with the bride and groom's parents and the families. And the gentleman sitting across from me was the groom's dad, and mom was sitting next to him. His name was Richard. And we start talking, and we're just having fun. I'm not really paying attention, to it much, and we're starting to really get into the jive of talking. And we start talking about how we had experienced, both of us, working on an assembly line, working in Chicago on these Mercury cars, and I can't remember the name of this military vehicle. Anyway, and we're getting into details where we'd actually known each other online. We'd Oh, yeah, I remember you. Yeah, we went and had lunch and we started discussing about people we were working with and things that we'd done together in detail. His wife turns sheet white and is totally silent. And we both look at her and go, "What's going on?" And she says, "How old are you?" I said, 22. Why? She says, "You're talking about things that happened 40 years ago." This was back when World War II was a thing, and these military cars were being used and being manufactured in the Ford plant to be used for the war. Now, he had gray hair at the time. I was 22 at the time. Now I have the gray hair. So that got me really digging into what is this all about and why are we here? So back to the fundamental question, fear. Fear is not knowing. Fear is, well, it's a combination of maybe two things. Not knowing or being unaware of what's going to happen. Or in the case of the reptilian brain part of how we're built as humans, as physical beings, we have been taught to make sure that things, when we hear growling noises and sticks breaking and rocks falling, that we figure out how to get out of that area very quickly. And our reptilian brain is designed and hardwired to keep us alive in those fear kind of situations. And even though those types of fearful things happen in today's world, like if a car is out of control and coming at you down the street, fear is a really good tool at that point to say, there's a car coming at you down the street. You need to move now, right? But then there's the fear that's in our mind, like the fear of talking in front of a large group of people, or the fear of taking that next step or asking for a raise, or the fear of taking a chance and I don't know, starting a new company. Those fears, I would suggest, come from a place of feeling small and being taught that we're not able to do those things. Where the reality is that when we remove doubt, so we have fear. Fear for me and what I've written in the Infinity Within is a signpost. If you start feeling anxious or fear, the first thing to ask is, where's that coming from? Why am I feeling this? And usually it will come down to doubt. I doubt I can do this. I doubt I can handle this. I doubt I can manage this thing, or it's too big for me, or whatever the thing is. And if you can carve away at doubt, what I've found, these are words that I use in the book to kind of give a visual path to this, is when you start removing doubt and seeing things, the illusion of what we consider to be real starts fading, and we get to start seeing what we're really able to do. And so when you take a look at, let's say you want to ask for a raise and you're scared that you're going to get fired, or the boss isn't going to be receptive, or whatever, the first question is why? Where's that coming from? Do you not feel worth it? Do you feel like you're going to get yelled at? Do you feel like you're going to get fired? All those questions, and then start digging into the doubts, and then figure out what's important to you. Is getting that raise important? Is it something you feel like you deserve? Great, go after it. What's the worst thing that can happen? Because fear really is getting past that point of what's the worst thing that can happen, understanding what that is, and getting there.
I love it, man. That makes so much sense. How do we start to master fear in a sense? Because you alluded to this a little bit. We tend to fear what we don't understand, right? So how do we actually start to become aware of this in our own lives and navigate it in a skillful manner?
Absolutely. The first step is to get into to work on. So if people haven't done this, it's harder. If you've done a little bit of it, it's a little easier. Is our bodies, so you have your mind, body, and spirit, which are kind of the triad of how we exist, right? Our body is like a tuning fork in the world. So when we start feeling fear, even though we may be not consciously aware of it right away, our body will start doing things about it. We'll start getting sweaty, we'll get hot flashes, we'll get nervous, our leg will start shaking. There are going to be physical manifestations that are those signposts that fear is happening. So I'd say the first step is to start listening to your body more. When you go through each day, not only pay attention to the conscious things that you're seeing and hearing, but pay some attention to what's going on in your own body. Where is the energy? Is it in your stomach, in your chest? Are you feeling excited and you've got that excitement going on? Are you feeling squished? Are you feeling that fear and that cold sweat? Where is that fear located in your body? And start understanding what your body's telling you so that your conscious mind can be more flagged for that fear coming up. Once that's flagged and you're consciously aware of it, that's when you get to start asking yourself questions. Where is it coming from? Why am I feeling this? Is it really something that's happening right now that's terribly fearful, like that car coming at me? Or is it a past memory or some past harm that's in my consciousness from a childhood situation that's being brought up? Because the brain, our conscious and subconscious, especially our subconscious, does not differentiate from a fear that comes from a memory or from a fear that's in the physicality you're in right now with that car coming at you. And so the reaction to either one of those fears is the same, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so first thing is you don't want to ask too many questions when the car's coming at you. That one you actually want to get out of the way right now. But if it's not something physically coming at you or going to drop on you, then you can start really digging into, slow down and start asking questions. Why am I feeling this? Okay, where is this coming from? Okay, what is causing this fear? Because as you start digging into those questions, it actually pulls the energy away from it affecting you, if that makes sense.
Definitely, yeah. So it sounds like it starts with awareness, right? Because a lot of times we fear things and they're just not real. So just becoming aware of, like, where's it coming from? Is this real or not? And then kind of going from there.
Exactly right. Exactly right. The conscious mind works off of knowledge and knowing what's going on. Our emotions are more of our body physicality. And then, of course, emotions, there's the right and left side of our brain that has a lot to do with things. But the more we understand a thing, the less the thing can cause fear or harm us or keep us from doing something.
100%. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm just thinking, like, because fear, you mentioned this, it can be a tool, right? We can kind of utilize it in our lives to make us better in a sense. But a lot of us, I just see that we're using it and we don't know what to do with it. So we're just kind of holding us back and we're not really reaching our full potential.
Spot on. Absolutely. Well, we're taught as children, right? I mean, if we do something wrong and our parent screams at us, we have fear. If as a child we have different things going on where fear teaches us to not reach out, not do certain things, to stay quiet, to stay safe, to not push the envelope, right? So we're taught to be small, in a lot of cases. Now, I'm not saying everybody, because there's a lot of different ways that people are brought up, but a lot of society, in the United States particularly, we're taught to kind of be worker bees in a lot of sense. Like, our schools are set up where we go to school, we're supposed to be quiet, we're not supposed to act out. We sit in our chairs, we follow our instructions, we do our tests, we get our scorecards, and a lot of people may not be aware of this. It's becoming more and more, the knowledge is becoming more and more prevalent, but the Rockefeller, I forget the main guy's name, the guy that started all this, when we
John?
switched, I'm sorry?
John?
Could be. I don't, John D. Rockefeller, is that right? Okay, I think so.
Yeah.
We were switching from a farming and I want to call it agrarian society to a factories, and there's a word for, not technological because we're kind of there now, industrial society. Well, in an industrial society, what do you need? Well, you need workers. And so Rockefeller came up with a couple of different ways to manage that. In the Rockefeller day, they came up with the idea of 3 square meals a day. Prior to that, it did not exist. It came up with the idea of the government-funded school system, where we're taught to kind of march in and do our stuff and march out. Well, what is that training us to do and be? And then when you start breaking out of that mold, what's the first thing that you feel?
Exactly. Yeah, man. That's empowerment once you start to become aware of that and move through it. Man,
It's
that's
huge.
yeah. That's where you find your light for sure. I mean, it's a matrix at its finest.
There's a lot of, so there's a story that I heard a while ago, and I don't remember where it's from, and you could call this a conspiracy theory, is that all of the movies, let me rephrase that. A lot of the movies that are produced are actually used in order to eliminate karma blowback. And I'm watching this. I'm watching this thing, and I'm watching. They said, "Here's the deal." And again, this is more of a conspiracy theory thing, but it's an interesting idea. If you understand that ultra-rich people do not live like the rest of us, and what I mean by that is we work, we pay bills, we go get groceries, we figure out what we're going to fix in food, we clean our houses, we keep our cars clean. There's a lot of things that keep us busy. When you have $1 billion, every one of the things I just listed, you don't need to do. You get to pay somebody to do. So now, where does all that time go? So these people have a huge amount of spare time that you and I don't, because we're busy doing the things that we're taught to do and the things that keep everything moving. But when you hit a certain dollar amount, you can pay for all of that to be done and focus on just what you want to focus on. So, assuming there are people like that, which I can guarantee you there are, what do? Well, the idea of this karmic blowback is that these people, some of them, all of them, know that there's certain things going on in life, and because of that knowledge, they're concerned that the karma blowback will be horrendous because they've kept it from people. So what they do is they pay to have these movies done, which show people all the things going on under the idea of a movie, but it's actually showing you what's really happening. And now they don't have any karmic blowback because they've warned you. So it's a fascinating idea. Again, this is way out there on the fringe, right? But it's an interesting idea of, okay, so the Matrix, is it real? Is it not? Well, we're hearing more and more people saying, well, we might be in a Matrix. Okay, well, how would we know? Right? Unless somebody walks up with a blue pill and a red pill and tells us to take one or the other, how do you know? And so this idea of these movies coming out and showing certain representations of reality and in the construct of the movie, this concept from this group, again, they're kind of a fringe concept, was, well, yeah, the people in power actually know all this stuff is happening, and they're showing it through movies so they don't get any karmic blowback from it. So it's a really interesting concept.
Yeah. A lot of
But it
control
does ask.
mechanisms for sure.
I'm sorry?
So a lot of control mechanisms for sure.
Yes, there are. Have you watched and seen, and I don't want to take this into a political discussion very far in, but have you seen what Kennedy has been doing with the food in the United States?
Yeah.
I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time in Europe and the United States, and just a bag of Doritos in Europe, I think, has 7 ingredients. Non-GMO corn, a couple other things, and the coloring comes from paprika. In the United States, the same Doritos company sells to people here. A bag of Doritos has, I think, 27 ingredients or 23 ingredients. GMO corn, 3 or 4 different synthetic dyes,
Right.
and a number of other different things.
Yeah.
What the hey?
I'm aware of that. It's like so many things are not legal in other places that, I mean, if the processed food companies had any ethical things, they would kind of go based off of that instead of just
Yeah.
whatever's the cheapest,
Yeah, whatever sells fast and cheap. And then, so, this is getting off course of fear and how reality works, but this does talk to the point of being aware and knowledge and knowing that taking control of different parts of your life, in this particular simple example of growing your own food, getting your own chickens, having a garden, taking control of some of the food aspects of things can be a huge life-changing event. And it gives power back to the person that does those things.
100%, man. Leslie, how do we unlock our full potential? Like, so we talked about this, and there's so many different blocks and things we have to overcome. But how do we wake up to possibility? What is actually possible for our own lives?
So, in the book of The Infinity Within, which I wrote to give people some ideas on how to address exactly what you just asked. So what do I mean by that? The book has a lot of my past in it, as we discussed earlier. It has a fictional character that you follow along in a story. And I wrote the book intentionally that way so that when you're reading it or listening to it, it's not designed to tell you, you have to believe this or preach to you. I don't want that. I want you to follow the story of Gabe and what he learns and comes across and what he fights and his fears and his doubts, and then take from that what you will. The reason I say that to answer your question is I am a firm believer that we're each one of us is fully capable of doing anything that any of the miracle workers in the world, as we've described in different theologies and different things, have done. So if somebody says, can you heal like Jesus healed? My answer is, if you can eliminate doubt, yes. If you want to achieve a certain level of less reactivity, meaning you don't have the triggers and people can't piss you off all the time and all those things, absolutely, as you see how kind of Buddha did his things and how he processes how things happen to him, those teachings, those things he did, are directly available to you. Now, here's the fun one. How many different spiritual workers and different stories and books like The Secret have all of you folks seen that you can create complete financial freedom and full wealth and yet still are striving to do it. Now, what's fascinating is take a look at where Elon came from. Take a look at what he did. A lot of people make fun of me because in the introduction of my book, The Infinity Within, I have 4 people I mention in one sentence: Jesus, Buddha, Eckhart Tolle, and Elon Musk. And my mom especially goes, Elon's not a spiritual person. Why is he in your list? It's, no. That's not what I'm trying to say here. Elon has been told his entire life he can't do something. What you're trying to do is impossible. You can't land rockets. You can't do a car with electric and beat all the major car people. You can't do this. You can't do this. And guess what? Because he didn't listen to any of those people, what has he done? He's flipped the car industry upside down. He's flipped the entire space industry upside down. He's got more satellites than any other company that allowed anybody in the world to talk to anybody. So when the war was going on and is going on over in Russia and Ukraine, those people can still talk. They can't be shut down. The satellites are there. He's changed entire industries, and he's one person. Well, is that genetics? No. Did he come from a especially rich family? No. Was he a safe child that never got abused? Well, according to him, no. I guess his father was pretty abusive, according to what he said or says. So why is he changing the world, not just in one place, but in multiple places? So every one of us has the ability, once we look past fear, use that fear from taking the next step as a guidepost to see what's going on and start chipping away at the doubts that keep the illusions in place, that keep us from seeing what we're really each capable of doing. And remember that we're all connected, and I love to say this. Anybody you talk to that knows me knows I say this. There is no such thing as coinkydinks. Now that's a play on words for coincidence. And the reason I say that is, since I was 14 years old, 12 years old and up, I could be sitting anywhere, at a gas station, in a coffee shop. Some person randomly comes up and starts telling me their life story. It's like, I don't know this person. They go through whatever they're going through. We talk, and they leave. Was that a coincidence? Or did I need to hear what they had to say, and they needed to hear what I had to say? And for those 10 minutes or half hour or 1 hour, that connection was necessary for both of those people, for me and that other person, to move to our next step, to get to our next place. Why we're on this podcast together. Was that a coincidence? Was it happenstance that I just happened to find you and you said, well, this guy looks interesting, I'll go talk to him? Or was it really something that was meant to happen?
Yeah.
And so that's a part of the puzzle, is all to all your listeners, to everybody, when those coinkydinks happen, start listening to them. Start seeing them for what they may be. You could have some random person that looks like a street bum come up and start talking to you, and it turns out the guy's a billionaire and ends up hiring you to change a whole product line for him or something. I mean, anything can happen in this universe, but the more present you are, the more you believe in yourself and who you are and how much power you have, the faster those things manifest.
Love it, man. Truth conquers. So if people want to get connected with you and your work, where can we find you?
So I have a couple different places. There's theinfinitywithin.com. There's krisland.com. There's the infinitywithin.me. And then on the social media side of things, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, the Infinity Within is available through all those places. And then on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, Walmart sells the Infinity Within now, which I'm completely stoked. It's like, huh, I never thought I'd see my book in Walmart. Not that that's a huge deal, but for me it is. But you can find, if you type in the Infinity Within on Google, I take over the first 4 or 5 pages. There's only one other thing that's in there is there's a 1970s rock group called the Infinity Within, and they have an album that's called the Infinity Within. So they pop up as well. But pretty much you can find me anywhere there.
I love it, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anthony. It's been a pleasure and an awesome time.
Absolutely.